Hello, Bible journaling friends. It's Jade again from theholymess.com, and today I am here to highlight a few items that came from the new Illustrated Faith Devotional Kit, This is Love. I really enjoyed so many different things on this kit, but one thing in particular really stuck out that I had to look at it more. This one-of-a-kind card that has Jeremiah 1:5 on it. On the back, it says, "Look at your thumbprint. God is so into details that even He individually hand-carved a unique thumbprint for each person." Ugh. And I just knew that this was something that I needed to work with. So I have a new technique that I would like to share with you today. I am working in the Inspire Large Print Bible, and I am on Jeremiah 1:5. And I'm going to begin today by protecting my pages so that we don't have to worry about anything happening to the ones that I haven't done yet. So I'm going to put this craft mat on the back of both pages because we're going to be using both pages today. And I'm going to use another piece of craft mat here to actually do some work on. So the first thing that I'm going to do today is use a plain acrylic paint, just a light gray. And I usually do block off the words with washi. Excuse me, let me back up. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart." And I would normally block this off with washi, but I'm not completely covering up the page, so I'm hopeful that I'm just going to be able to avoid that spot. So I'm going to put a small dot of my acrylic paint on my craft mat, and then I am going to water it down a little. Now I like to use a paintbrush to water it down, a nice thick paintbrush, so that it's all in one step. I pull up some water and I just plop it on and I just kind of water it down like that, and it does it. You can also just use like a little spritzer to spritz it on if you wanted to. And for this technique, what I'm going to do is I just did a little bit of paint because I can always add more, and I'm going to take a large broad paintbrush and I'm going to keep it dry, and then I'm going to dip it into the watered down acrylic paint, and then I'm going to just brush it over my page. And the look that I'm going for is just a very light, sort of textured look. You can put as much or as little on as you want. This is how I was pretty sure that I'd be able to avoid that verse. And it does look like I'm going to need more paint. And I would like just enough color that my next step kind of stands out a little bit better. But not so much that you can't read the words, and not so much that it feels like it's overwhelming. Ah, look at that. Silly me, I caught the 5. This is why I always block off my verse with washi tape. Okay, so I'm going to, a little bit more water. See how easy that paintbrush just drops up? It just seems like the amount of water that we need. Just a little bit more. And there's a couple of the places that I missed. And this dry, broad paintbrush just gives a really fun sort of texture to it. Just like that, as much or as little as you would like, but just get a little bit of color so that you're not staring at a stark white page. And then I'm going to just move this craft mat right out of the way, but I'm going to leave these in just to help protect for the next step. So the next thing that I'm going to do, and I just knew when I saw this, the back of this card, that I needed to somehow get a fingerprint in my Bible. And if you guys have seen the sneak peek video, you've seen that there are lots of hearts in this kit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tiny little pink stamp pad and I'm going to get some ink on my finger, and then I'm just going to use 1, 2 to use my fingerprint to make little hearts. Now it is a faint color and it actually shows up on the acrylic paint a little bit more than it shows up on the page, so you can just play with that. And I don't have a design, I'm just putting them everywhere. Now this is a technique that you can use in a page like this where you're looking for an individual fingerprint, one of a kind. This is a fun technique to do if you Bible journal with kids. This is a fun one if you're doing a love verse, if you're preparing something for Valentine's Day. So I've just filled in most of the spots, and I'm going to use baby wipe to clean up my finger. And then I want to just take a moment to mention that I did test the light gray paint and the light pink stamp pad for bleed through on a separate sheet before I began this project. You would get a completely different look if you chose different color paints. It could be very bold and bright, very dynamic, lots of different things you could do with this specific technique. I would like to caution you though, I did not use any page prep or any gesso. If you are going to use a darker color, you might want to use a gesso or just expect a little bit of bleed through on the back. I don't usually use gesso for acrylics, but remember we watered it down a little bit, so it's not going to have as much coverage, and because we're brushing it on so soft, it's not going to have as much coverage. So please, 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 please experiment with this, but if you're going with darker colors, I definitely would recommend the gesso. So from here, there are a few things on this Illustrated Faith kit that I wanted to use. And I think I'm almost dry, but I'm just going to give it just a moment. And there was something that struck me when I started working on preparing this page. And obviously Jeremiah 5 is an amazing verse, but sometimes we miss. Up here in Jeremiah 3, it says, in August of that 11th year, the people of Jerusalem were taken away as captives. And I'm just over and over amazed at how when we feel like we're captives, our Father comes back to us and says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart. And I know that God did not set us apart to be captives. He made us for greatness. So if you're up here in Jeremiah 1:3, and it is August on the 11th year, and you've been taken away as a captive, I pray and I just have faith, because God knew you before He formed you in your mother's womb, and before you were born, He set you apart, and He has a plan. And I know that when you're a captive, it can be hard to hold faith to what His plan is, but just like for the Israelites and for Jeremiah, there is a plan. So just stand firm. And now that my page is dry, I'm going to take a few of these things and add them in. I definitely want to use the one of a kind, and there is a die cut as well as a sticker. So I'm going to put the sticker and the die cut. And I am using just a little bit of glue stick because every time I try to use those tape runners, they decide not to work. So my good old handy glue stick never lets me down. The other thing that I pulled out is a couple of these little hexie die cuts. And I really, really like these pink, so I want to make sure that I get that in. I'm going to put in God's Masterpiece down here, right by my thumbprint. And I'm going to use this pink flag to highlight this verse. I'm using a little ruler to kind of tuck it in between the two Bible pages so that my Bible still opens and it doesn't feel like it's getting stuck. And I'm going to put a couple more hearts. And then I'm going to glue in these little hexie pieces. And I've also pulled out some hearts that I'm going to glue in. And I pulled out some stamps. I'm not certain if they're going to have space in here or not, but I like to have the possibility. Okay. And this little one looks so lonely, I have to tuck it in somewhere, right? So there you go. And I think if you were interested in adding some stamps, this is Love Kit has these two hexie stamps, and I have pulled out a teal stamp pad, and that would make some fun stamping options. But because I didn't prep my page, it is possible that I'm going to get a little bit of bleed through. I'm not quite sure. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and put a date stamp on this. Happy February, ladies. Oh my goodness, look! I missed a heart. This poor little thing needs to go down here. So that's what I have for today, ladies. This kit is a lot of fun. I would encourage you to experiment with this technique of using the paint to prep the color and then using your fingerprint for some hearts or some other types of things that you do. And please head on over to theholymess.com and see, post your pages so that we can see what everybody is working on. And please know that I will be praying for all of you friends who feel like you're captives right now. You will be on my heart this month, so just know that you are not alone. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I send you blessings and prayers for sanity.